I'm going to talk about wage slavery, but first let me introduce myself. I'm 27 years old. I work as a software engineer and I make $150,000 a year. But I hate my job. I hate every single job I've had, and I've worked in so many different industries trying to find the job for me, but all I've learned is that all the jobs suck. I hate offices. I hate being expected to be there between certain hours. And I quit my first job after 5 months. And I don't say any of this to complain. Obviously, I'm pretty privileged. But I say this because way too many people have to waste the majority of their lives working jobs that they don't enjoy. And honestly, in many cases, society doesn't even need them to do. And it doesn't have to be this way. We're wealthy enough as a society to where it doesn't have to be this way. And despite the insane amount of technological advances that have happened over the last century, the work week hasn't really gotten any shorter. If anything, it's gotten longer since the 50s and such. If you consider the fact that these days both parents need to work to support the same lifestyle that a single parent could have provided 50 years ago. And nothing will ever change until we fundamentally change our economic system or institute or just make some drastic changes. And the most obvious policy that could be implemented that would fix so many of these problems overnight would be a universal basic income, and be so easy to implement, and it would give the worker the option of walking away from the employer and give the worker the freedom to work for him or herself on whatever he or she wants to do, rather than having to be a wage slave working for somebody else. It would be a basic safety net that promotes greater risk taking, more entrepreneurship, more research, more work for the public good, stuff like researching a cure for cancer, stuff like that doesn't necessarily have a short-term profit. And of course, it's just a basic safety net. So for the people at the bottom in poverty that are working 3 jobs, working 80 hours a week and living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet, it obviously would drastically improve their lives and enable them to do more productive things rather than being slaves for the rich. And I guess in this video, I'm probably gonna focus more on the suffering of people. And so again, obviously, I'm pretty privileged. I'm not exactly in the suffering class because I make $150,000 a year. Though to be fair, it's not as glamorous as it sounds when you consider that 40% of that paycheck gets taken out via taxes, and I live in New York City, where the cost of living is insane. Rent is going to cost you anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a month, and that's living with roommates. If you want to live alone, then you're looking at least $2,200 plus a month, and this is assuming you want to commute less than 20 minutes. Obviously, you can go into deep Brooklyn and pay like $800 a month with roommates and commute like 45 minutes each way. Also, I have over $100K in student loans, so that comes out to around $1,000 a month in payments to student loan debt. So there's that too. But anyways, I'm not the one suffering. I live pretty comfortably. I save a lot of money. I don't live paycheck to paycheck. I live pretty frugally. But there are a lot of people that are really suffering out there. I don't know how anybody lives in the city that makes like under $50K a year, unless you have like a rent stabilized apartment or something like that. It's just really not really possible, honestly, or at least you definitely won't save any money. You're going to be chronically financially stressed out. And I really wish that more people were conscious and aware of the suffering that goes on in the world. The reality is that most of us live in a bubble, myself included. I don't interact with poor people on an everyday basis, and I kind of I want these voices, these stories to be heard. You know, you look at the news and go on Bloomberg.com or whatever, and you'll see articles like the unemployment rate hit 10-year low and economic growth is picking up and this recovery is strong and all this stuff. And it's just completely divorced from reality. It's just so divorced from reality. And the reality is that people are struggling, and that struggling isn't getting any mainstream attention. Instead, you have these ivory tower economists and these like rich people in their own little bubbles calling all the shots, making all these policies without even considering the people that are suffering. And all it takes is a single person suffering under our system to show that something needs to change and that things need to be improved. So yeah, in some future episodes, I'm gonna do some interviews with poor people, or just people in general that are struggling. Um, and But I guess yeah, this is more of an intro episode, podcast or video. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with this, but yeah, hit me up. Let me know what you think. Whether you like, if you disagree with me, let me know. I learn the most from people that I don't agree with, or that have opposing viewpoints from me. And this is very brief. Wasn't meant to be an in-depth video. I've been wanting to do something like this for so long, and I've just been slacking on it. So I'm a little bit of a perfectionist in that I like it has to be perfect, but because of that, I never finish anything. And this is how it was when I was making music. This is how it is for, yeah, I guess this as well. So I just decided, like, fuck it. I'm just going to record myself talking, and regardless of how stupid I sound, how much I'm stuttering on my words, I'm just going to post it, finish it, and post it. So yeah, if there's any takeaway, yeah, I didn't even talk about the freaking history. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about history. Well, I wanted to mention some anecdotes, but basically, slavery was officially ended in 1865. But so when these slaves were freed, these African Americans, all of a sudden they're free, but they didn't have any money or property. So what did they do? Well, a lot of them had to become sharecroppers, which many say the life of a sharecropper was actually no better than the life of a slave. Not really much different than the life of a slave. They were working 12 to 14-hour days, barely making ends meet, and it was just a very shitty life. And in the 1800s, you had manufacturing workers working 100 hours, 100-hour work weeks. I think that was like the average work week of the manufacturer. I saw a source saying that. And yeah, it was terrible. And that's why the 1800s had so many bloody riots, honestly, bloody protests against employers. You had so many labor strikes, so many protests and such. People literally died for this. And obviously now it's better, but it's shitty though. Fuck, man. Yeah, the problem is I always lose my train of thought. So what was it? What was the point I was trying to get at? I can't remember. Basically, what I was trying to say, I guess, is that it's just because politically you're free, that doesn't necessarily equate to you actually being free in reality. You look at the sharecropper, and even though legally or technically he was free, his life was the same, and that slave still had to devote the bulk of his time to somebody else. That's not liberty. And people need to realize that even though we're free in name, most of us are slaves. If you're working a job that you don't enjoy, that you wouldn't be doing otherwise, and you're spending 8 hours a day there and maybe 30 minutes each way commuting, so that's 9 hours a day. And keep in mind, say you sleep 8 hours a night, which honestly most people aren't even getting that much sleep. That means and then take out maybe like an hour or two for cooking and showering and just those basic errands. You basically have, I didn't exactly do the math, but you have like 4 hours of free time, something like that, all said and done. So you have 4 hours of free time every day. Are you a free man? Are you a free woman? Are you free? No, you're not. You're a slave. You're spending your life for somebody else, and it doesn't have to be that way. Look around you at all the jobs we do. In the U.S., most people are working in the service sector. You look at the waiters, the waitresses, the cashiers, software engineers, all these people. Do these people really need to be doing this stuff, at least to the extent that they are, for society to function? No, it doesn't have to be that way. If you look at office workers, most of them, they're not working that 8 hours that they're in the office. They're only working a fraction of it. The office is extremely unproductive because most companies mandate that you have to be there between 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever the hours are. There's no incentive for you to get your work done faster, because you're only going to get more work piled. Only going to get assigned more work if you finish your work faster. And so therefore there's no incentive. Work tends to expand to fill the time allocated to do it. I think that's, what is that called again? There's like a name for that. Can't remember, but Pareto principle or something like that. But Parkinson's law. And so offices are extraordinarily inefficient. And if we had a basic income, then more people would be working part-time. I think more people don't want to be working full-time for the jobs that they don't enjoy working for somebody else. And so more people would be working part-time. The reality is that more people, they want to do work that they themselves enjoy. So many people want to be professors because if you can get tenure, then you can do what you want to do. And so they're willing to go through the insane amount of hoops of academia to try to get that coveted professor position, and that's why it's like almost impossible to get that these days. But people want to do work for the good of humanity, or just make art, whatever. And like, even if people don't want to do anything, so what? Like, if robots can do all the work, then why the hell does it matter? It also seems that the government should be taking a more active role in creating the jobs for the long-term security of the U.S. and just the type of jobs that the private labor markets underfund. We're talking about stuff like curing cancer, more efficient battery energy storage solutions, getting us to space, curing Alzheimer's. There's just so much important work like that the private labor markets, they chronically underfund because there's not a short-term profit incentive there. And so for somebody who's skeptical about basic income, who's wondering like, oh, won't people just not work and just stop working and stuff? Well, first of all, you still make money for working, but even if that were the case, then yes, maybe the government should. I really do think the government should step up and create these jobs. We already fund the National Institute of Health and DARPA. We subsidize a lot of these research projects and stuff, but we could be doing so much more. And we really need to focus on workplace flexibility as well. This whole 9-to-5 ass in seat office mentality really needs to go. It's so outdated. And I think more people need to speak out against this. What I've realized is that most people, they don't really care about anybody but themselves. People are self-interested naturally. But for me, I just can't accept, I could just continue living my comfortable life, saving up money. I have like $100,000 in the bank right now. I'm just trying to save up so that I can quit and go to Thailand or something and live and have that money last for longer than it would here. Definitely wouldn't live in New York City. The cost of living here is insane. But and I could do that. I could live a comfortable life, but that's not satisfying to me. I think it's kind of like, imagine if the Holocaust was going on next door. Would you be content just continuing on saying like, oh, I'm making my money and then be content? For me, that doesn't really do it for me. And also our education system. I hated school, and when I was in school, I vowed that I would never forget this pain that I had to go through, and that I would fight to end it so that students didn't have to go through the bullshit that they have to go through now. And I haven't forgotten that. And I'm far removed. It's not as much at the forefront of my mind, but that's definitely on the agenda. Right now, I'm just some random dude. And, there's not too much I can do right now other than speak into a microphone and voice my concerns. I mean, there are more things I can do, but I'm not like a billionaire with influence or like a YouTube star or something with influence. But that's what I'm going to get. And trust me, when I get that influence, things are going to change. This wage slavery bullshit, this is going to end. And so, yeah, we all need to we need to support each other and like organize and make this a reality. So yeah, I mean, yeah, please comment on my video, whatever it is. If you have any questions, you think I'm an idiot, whatever it is, as long as it's constructive. I mean, if you're gonna hate, then as long as it's constructive debate, then I encourage it. But yeah, enough with this bullshit. We've been fucked over by the baby boomers enough, and this shit has to change. And by the way, I highly recommend reading the books Debt, The First 5,000 Years by David Graeber, and anything by Ha-Joon Chang, specifically 21 Things They Don't Tell You About Capitalism, and Bad Samaritans. That's a good one on free trade as well. So highly recommend that. Send me your book recommendations too. All right, I'm going to sign off now. Until next time.